9 years old.
Open at both ends. The gunpowder and the wadding went into a separate piece called the powder ball, the servidor. That's the cylinder that you see sitting beside the cannon to the rear of it. And we have one loaded just like it in the cannon already. Gunpowder and wadding in the servidor will slide up into the open breech under the cannon. Then you place a large block of wood in behind that to hold it in place. It's called the breech block. And while that's being done, somebody else is loading the cannonball, but from the muzzle end, from the front. So it's a breech-charged, muzzle-loaded cannon. Now they called them bombardettas. Once you fire that cannon, you pull the block of wood out of there, and then you pull the servidor away. You got another one already loaded with gunpowder and wadding. Now you can quickly reload the cannon. You're going to get your second shot off in about 25 seconds, more or less. And if you have 3 or more servitors per cannon, which was quite common, the 5-man crew would be switching these things out quickly, and a couple guys are reloading the servitors, so you'll keep up this rate of fire between 2 and sometimes 3 shots a minute. Now that's 3 times as fast as that type of cannon, but they were weak. They didn't have the range, they couldn't fire as heavy of a cannonball either, so ours would fire a 6-pound solid iron shot. They didn't explode, by the way. They didn't have exploding cannonballs yet. Those don't come around to the 1700s. Now, if you put a full load of gunpowder in the servitor, our cannon had a maximum range of just under a mile, at least when the cannons were new. I use the bridge lines as a reference because that's 9/10 of a mile from here. That gives you a pretty good idea of their maximum range. Now, they were not accurate at that distance. That's a Hail Mary shot. But the gunners did train, and they were supposed to practice once a week, King's orders, to hit targets at about a half a mile. A little beyond that, but that was really the effective range. So what happens if the enemy were to show up offshore, big ships? On their ships they have lots of cannons that fire 2 miles. How do you defend yourself here with these half-mile cannons? Well, that's why Menendez chose this spot to fortify. Now, he knew that the inlet that existed back in those days, not our modern inlet, but the original inlet, was very narrow, and it was only 9.5 feet deep at high tide. It's too shallow for large ships to come through. They had to remain offshore. That was more than 2 miles from here, so the 2-mile guns could never reach us. And Menendez knew if we were going to be attacked by the enemy, they'd be coming across that bay in a smaller, shallow draft boat. And the bay was different than it is today, in that the vegetation and mangroves that we have out here today did not exist then. You could clearly see to the other side. So once the enemy got halfway across that bay, heading this way, it would have been in range of our cannons. And remember, we have 20 cannons, each one firing 2 or 3 of these things every minute. It's a lot of cannonballs flying out of here. And even though they're small and they really don't look like much, but these things are traveling through the air at over 400 miles an hour. They would have smashed through these small wooden boats like they're made out of cardboard. You can only imagine what would happen to the soldiers in the boats. Just be happy you're not in one. So even though these cannons were old and obsolete, they were still adequate to defend our spot here. The amount of gunpowder that they would have used in our cannon would be about 1.5 pounds of black powder. Guess what we're not going to do today? Even though that'd be pretty spectacular, so people would forget for a while. You also wouldn't be able to hear anything for a couple hours, so we're not going to do that to you. We're going to use a smaller load. After we fire the cannon, that's when I'll tell you how much powder it is we really use. I think you're going to be surprised. The other thing is, we're not really firing a cannonball out of our cannon, even though it sounds like it would be fun. It really does. But the Coast Guard and the Marine Patrol are usually out there. Those guys have no sense of humor. And my buddy and I, we don't want to go to prison dressed like this, so this is going to be a blank shot. That's not so loud it's going to damage your hearing. We do recommend that children, anybody with sensitive hearing, or if you don't like loud noises, you should cover your ears. So if everybody's ready, we're going to fire away. Slight delay, folks. Technical. Now you see how the cannon gets loaded. All right, folks, here we go. Para España. Fuego.